Hey everybody, it's David Bott here from Outside Our Bubble, and we're coming to you today with a new version of making a private Wi-Fi system for your motor coach for under $100 using commercial grade products. There's a lot of products on the market that helps you do Wi-Fi in your motor coach where all your devices will connect to your own private network, and then that network will connect to the RV park or to your jetpack or what have you. But I'm going to show you how to build one for under $100 today using current parts from Ubiquiti. And I have another video on this which was done years ago with great success. Unfortunately, Ubiquiti stopped doing the Air Gateway product and they replaced it with something called an AirCube ISP. And so this is the new product that you're now using for your personal router inside of your motor coach. I really like the other solution better because it was nice and compact and streamlined for an RV. But unfortunately, they move on and they don't make the Air Gateway anymore, so this is this. Now I'm going to teach you how to do this using your computer and through Ethernet cables. And there is an app that you can use to control this and set it up, and also control the NanoStation, which is part of this design, the setup. However, Ubiquiti screwed up the firmware in the AirCubes. And what I mean by that is depending on what date this was manufactured, you can have version 1 firmware, and the version 1 firmware doesn't work with the app. Even though the instructions that come with it tell you how to set it up via the app, it doesn't work. So I'm going to walk you through setting up this entire private network just like I did on the other one, using Ethernet cables to get things connected and running. And then at that point, you're all wireless. A few things you need to know ahead of time. One is, I need you to download the most current firmware for the AirCube ISP. So you need to download the most current firmware as of you're watching this for the AirCube ISP. If you don't, then that's not a good thing. So I'm going to assume at this point, this video is going to assume version 1 is on here, okay? And I know that is on here, but I'm going to assume you might have a version 1. So we're going to be walking through, one of the first things we're going to do after we set up the NanoStation is we're going to walk through setting this up to be the most current firmware. So the first thing we'll do to this when we get there is the firmware upgrade. But the first thing we have to do is set up a NanoStation. And this is what's going to connect you to the RV park over long distances if need be, because this is a directional antenna. You point this to wherever you need it to go, and you connect to the RV park using this, and it's a directional high gain antenna, so it's very powerful, which is good. So you're going to need one of those too. Links are all below in the description. You're also going to need 2 network cables, 2 Ethernet cables, and the NanoStation comes with a POE adapter, okay, power over Ethernet. So this will come with one of these, which is also what you'll need to hook all this up. So I think that's everything. Oh, you're also going to need a computer with an Ethernet port. So if you don't have a computer with an Ethernet port, like this one, this is my MacBook Pro, where we're going to be doing this with a MacBook, so Windows will vary. I don't have an Ethernet port, so I use a USB to Ethernet adapter. And those are available, for any computer, kind of thing. And what you have to know how to do is you need to know how to change your IP address to be a static IP address. And what I mean by that is computers by default are using what they call DHCP mode. And so your Ethernet interface, you need to set to be static so we can assign the IP address. Now, I'm using a MacBook Pro, so if you have a Mac, then you're going to be able to follow along with this without any issues whatsoever. If you have a Windows, you have to learn and figure out how to change it from DHCP or automatic to static, or what they might call it static, or they might call it manual. I forget which. But the point being is you have to be able to change the IP address. So I have my screen here. We'll be able to cut back and forth between the screen and everything because I'm recording the session, and you'll be able to follow right along. So that's what we're going to start. First things first is we are going to take one cable. I'm trying to make this simplistic, so I'm going step by step. And we're going to connect it to the POE port. the POE port, it's labeled, of the injector. We're going to plug the other end into the NanoStation, okay, right into the port of the NanoStation right there, okay? And then we're just going to power this up. So excuse me as I turn my back as I power this up. Okay, so that's powering up, and this is powering up. So now, take the second cable that you have and plug that into the LAN port, LAN, LAN port of the PoE injector. Then take that and plug it into your Ethernet port of your computer. Okay? In this case, I'm plugging it into the USB adapter. You might have an Ethernet port in your computer, plug it into that. Now we're going to get into the settings to set it, what you have to set it for in order to work. What we're going to do now is I'm going to switch over to the screen here. Welcome to my screen. Yeah, first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn off my Wi-Fi because we want to make sure we're talking directly over Ethernet. And I'm going to then go into my system preferences, I'm going to go into network, and then I'm going to select my USB adapter here. And I'm going to change it right here. Right now, DHCP is the default. So I'm going to change that to manual. Okay, so it's manually set the IP address. I'm going to change that to 192.168.1.5. And then I'm going to change the subnet to be 255.255.255.0. Again, 255.255.255.0, all dots in between. Okay, going to hit apply. That is now manually set the static IP address, which now allows me to talk to the NanoStation to its IP address. So we're going to switch over to the web browser here, and we're going to type in the IP address of the NanoStation. The default IP address is 192.168.1.20. 192.168.1.20. Enter. It's going to say your connection is not private. That's because it wants to use a secure network, and we don't have credentials for that. Don't worry about it. Just click Advance or Continue, depending on what browser you're using. I'm using Chrome. Click Proceed, and it will bring up the login screen for the NanoStation. Now, the firmware that's on the NanoStation may also vary. So it may or may not look exactly like this, but all the settings I'm going to set will still be there and are usable. So, username, the default is Ubnt. Password default is Ubnt. You're going to select your country that you're in. That sets the broadcast rules of power and what have you. And then you're gonna click Agree to these terms, and then click Login. Ignore this pop-up window that comes up to save my passwords. Just ignore that. So here we are. Now, depending on what firmware version you have, this is version 6.16, it seems, that's on this particular radio. You may get this warning message about you're using the administrative password. That's true. Now, we're going to want to change the password to be something that you know, okay? You don't want to use the default Ubnt as the password. So up here at the top, click on System, okay? And then down here, see where the administrative username, see the little key right there? Click on the little key, and now this is where you can change the password. So the current password, Ubnt, and then you want to type in a new password. Now this will be a password that you will need to remember because this is the device you'll be getting into to connect to RV parks. So create your new password. I'm just going to use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so I'm just going to do that for now, and I'm going to change that. Again, ignore those. So now I just changed my password. So that's good. So far, so good. So now let's go over to the wireless tab. The wireless tab, this is the tab you're going to use whenever you connect to an RV park. Okay, so whenever you log into the NanoStation, when you get to a new RV park, this is the wireless. You're going to go to the wireless tab, and what you're going to do is you're going to click on Select. It will then scan the airwaves to see what's available out there, and it's showing me the networks it can see. Okay, so in this particular case, I'm going to connect to Southwood's Wi-Fi, which is the guest network. Now, what you can do also is you can sort. If you click on the signal here, you can sort by power. So if there's multiple access points with the same SSID, you want the strongest one. And the strongest one is the one that's closer to 0. So negative 57 is better than negative 64, for example, in this particular case. So I'm going to click on the strongest Southwoods Wi-Fi signal I see right here, and I'm going to click Lock to AP. It's going to put the MAC address right there. And the reason you want to lock to AP is so you don't jump around and drift around and get disconnected during that process. Then at the bottom, this is where you would put the password in for the park and that they gave you. So to connect to Southwoods Wi-Fi, the park password here is Fun Times. So I'm going to put that in, Fun Times, and then I'm going to hit change. Okay, now you notice I haven't hit apply yet at the top. Notice I have not hit apply. That's because we're not done yet. But once you hit apply, everything starts to get involved. Right now we're setting the settings. So this is the screen you'll be using whenever you go back in to change it. This next screen, the network, this is a one-time setup. This is the only time you'll have to be in this screen. So this is the important changes. So be particularly careful doing this section. First thing you're going to do is change it from bridged to router. Okay, change it to router. Network mode is router. You're going to scroll down to right here, NAT, N-A-T. You're going to enable NAT, and then you're going to enable each one of those things below it. Okay, there's 4. There's SIP, PPTP, FTP, and RTSP. Make sure those all are checked. Also make sure that should be automatically checked by default. Block management access. That's so nobody can come in from the WAN side to get into your device. Now, down here at the LAN setting, this is important, LAN. You're going to click on where it says DHCP server, you're going to click enabled. Up here where it says IP address, change that to 192.168.2.1. And then down below, range start, make that 2.2, and make the range end 2.254. So basically, we're changing the interface of where you're going to access the NanoStation when you want to change access points you connect to. So this is it. This is all the changes we need to make to the NanoStation to set it up to be used. So at this point, at the bottom, make sure you hit change. You always have to hit change. Okay? And it's going to just say, depending on the firmware, again, it's going to say management enable is disabled on the WAN side. Is that okay? And you're going to say, okay, yes, because you don't want people trying to get in. And then at this point, now everything's been changed. Everything's been changed at the, by clicking the change button at the bottom. And we can now go in and click apply. Now, when you click apply, that's going to reboot the radio. And the radio is going to reboot. And these lights on the bottom down here at the top are going to now, you're waiting for it. What you want to do is you want to see all of these lights light up, well, more of them light up than the power button and the LAN button. The LAN button will flash when your computer is talking to the NanoStation, just so you know. That's data going back and forth. And when you connect to the RV park, the other lights will light up. Now, if they start to flash on and off all at the same time, that means the password is probably incorrect and it cannot connect to the park. So you're going to want to go back in 192.168.2.1, okay, 2.1, and verify the password and everything. So at any time, I'm hoping this is going to connect to the park. So yep, there it goes. So now we're connected to the park. So everything is good. I know this is working and functioning and connected to the park at this point. Okay? So far, so good? I hope so. So everything on the NanoStation is working properly. If I move to another RV park, this is where I would log in. 192.168.2.1. I would log in here. I would click on wireless. I would then click on select. I would look for the SSID of that you want to connect to. Select it down here by lock to AP. And then once you do that, you would put in the password if it requires one. Most do. Make sure it's correct. Hit change. And then at the top, you would hit apply. That is how you change to another access point. Great. So now we're going to set up the AirCube. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to change the firmware on here. That's the first thing we're going to do. So hopefully you downloaded the firmware before you started and you're ready to go with that. So First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my computer to static mode. So in my particular case, manual. 192.168.1.5 is what I was using. I'm going to make sure I remove the router. I don't want that in there. I'm going to click apply. So now what we're going to do is we're going to disconnect the power from the NanoStation because it's coming out of the POE adapter, don't forget. And you're going to plug it into port 1, the gray port of the AirCube ISP, the gray port. That's going to supply power to the unit, and you can see it's flashing, so that means it's starting to boot up. Okay? So now we're going to give that a second or two to boot up. Now you're going to find that once you set this up, you really don't have to touch it. Okay? The only thing you have to go into is the NanoStation when you want to change Wi-Fi connections to the park or to your jetpack. Okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to wait for this to continue booting. We're going to wait for this to finish booting up. And then we're going to go to that. And that is 192. Now it's still in the same range of the static IP address we used. So we're going to go to 192.168.1.1. That's the IP address of the AirCube by default. 192.168.1.1. Hit enter. It's going to come up with the same thing again about private network. Click advanced, click proceed, and it's going to ask you to log in. There it is. Now to make things more difficult, the login, the password is on the bottom of the AirCube, and it's the second line down, and it's really, really small letters. So bear with me a second. Now, it's really small. It's a pain in the butt. So the username, again, the default username is Ubnt. And then the password is, in this particular case, whatever yours is. And I'm hoping I get this right. If not, it's going to be really a shame. I think it is. And then hopefully LJ. Hopefully I got it right. Oh, good, I did. Yay. Okay. So what we're going to do again, select the country, United States, agree, continue. I'm going to wait for that to confirm and go through. Now at this point, we're going to upgrade the firmware. At the top up here where it says AirCube ISP, right here, there's the first little icon here is upgrade firmware. Click on that and then select the firmware that you had downloaded already. In this case, it's version 2.4.0. And then you would click open, and that will upgrade, it will send the firmware to the cube. Once it does that, it will verify the firmware is the right firmware for this device. And then you would just simply click upgrade firmware and wait. Okay? So, assuming that I've already done that at this point, so at this point you would click update firmware and we would have to wait. And then after it's done, stop right there. Get yourself a very thin paper clip, a very, very thin paper clip. Flip over the AirCube, and at the bottom there's a reset button, okay? Very important. You want to push in on a paper clip. You'll feel a button in there. Push in and hold until it flashes. We just factory reset the radio. So after it's done resetting and rebooting, then log back into 192.168.1.1 and we continue on. The screen will come up, Ubnt, and then the password, W, in my case, ZIYBUJL. Okay, so now that we upgraded the firmware and we're ready to go to finish the configuration of the AirCube ISP. So, and this is really the easy part. The first thing you want to do is you want to change the password. So down here on the left-hand side, click on the system, the little gear icon. Click on that, and then right here, you're going to want to change password. And then put in your new password. So I'm going to put in a password. I'm going to hit change. Simple as that. It's going to go through. Password changed successfully, it tells you. Good. Now I don't have to worry about that stupid password at the bottom. Yay. So you change the password on that same screen before you leave, click right here, POE Passthrough. Turn that on, okay? The reason that is because that's going to supply power to the NanoStation through that port right there, the WAN port, the blue port, okay? So you're going to save changes, okay? It's going to go, says, please wait, applying changes. It's going through and changing the POE Passthrough and the password. Done. Now once that's done, now we can name your SSID, your network, to be whatever you want it to be. So now click on the wireless tab. Okay, over here at the left, wireless. And right now the SSID is AirCube AE1. We're going to change that. I'm just going to make it botnet. Okay, and leave everything else the same. And then over here, the password, this is the password of what you want it to be to log on to your network. Okay, a lot of people make the password to log into the NanoStation the same, so it's easy to remember because it's just your network after all. So in this particular case, to log in, I'm going to give it a password, and it must be 8 characters or more for it to work. So I changed the SSID, and I changed the password of that. This is your wireless network. So this is what your devices will connect to. All of your devices will connect to that SSID once we do this. You're going to hit Save Changes. So now that is applying those changes to the AirCube. And once that happens, you'll see that we will have that SSID being broadcast in the air. Okay, so now that we've done all that, so everything is going good, we can verify we're getting a good IP address and everything is running by switching back to DHCP. Okay, switch it back to DHCP or automatic, I think it's called in Windows. Hit apply. You'll see that you're going to get an IP address of 192.168.1 dot something. Your computer is getting that address from the AirCube. So far, so good. So what we can do now, since we know this is all working correctly, what we can do now is unplug the cable from your computer. Okay, we're going to disconnect that. We're going to plug it into the WAN port of the AirCube ISP, the blue port, the WAN port. And then we're going to plug that into the already configured NanoStation. Okay, it's got to power it up because we turned on POE Passthrough. So once that powers up, we're going to wait now. So what we're going to do is while we're waiting, we're going to go back over and we're going to turn on Wi-Fi again. And then when I turn Wi-Fi on, so now I can see the SSID botnet. That's the one we just created, the new network. So I'm going to click on botnet. And I am now connected to, well, not yet. There it is. It wants the password. And I'm going to connect to the botnet, which I just did. And you can see this is now connected to the park while I was talking. Great. So now what's happening is the NanoStation is connected to the park. It's going into the WAN port of the ISP, the AirCube ISP, and the AirCube ISP is broadcasting the SSID of botnet, which I am now connected to. Great. So which means I should have internet. Going to YouTube. There it is. I have internet. Yay! Everything is working just the way it should. Now, the AirCube ISP is done. You don't have to touch this again unless you want to. And if you do, you use the 192.168.1.1 address to get to it and you log in. Using the password that you had set, don't forget. Now, once all this is running, which it is right now, I am on, as you can see, botnet. Now, say I move to another RV park. As I said before when we were talking about the NanoStation, the easiest thing to do there now is you connect to botnet, or your network, excuse me, and then you just go to 192.168.2.1, okay? And it'll ask you to log in to the NanoStation, Ubnt, and your password. Once you log into that, once again, you just go into wireless. You would then click on select. You would then find the network you want to connect to, connect, and that would then pass through the AirCube. So that's it. This is you just created a private Wi-Fi network in your motor coach. I hope this makes sense. The other video made perfect sense. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people made private networks for under $100. And now you can too, using the new AirCube from Ubiquiti. And every once in a while, you will want to log into this 192.168.1.1, and it will tell you if there's new firmware or not. And if there's new firmware, if you're connected to the internet at the time, it'll check for firmware. And if there is new firmware, it will install it for you if you tell it to. So you're going to want to check that once in a while. Same holds true for the NanoStation. You're going to want to, when you log into that, it might tell you there's new firmware. If it has internet access, it'll automatically check and let you know. Other than that, there's our network. I hope this all makes sense. It seems like a lot, but it's not. So don't let it stress you out too much. Well, that's about that. I'm David Bott from OutsideOurBubble.com, and we just created a personal Wi-Fi, high-powered personal Wi-Fi network for your motor coach for under $100. Take care, keep safe, and if you like what we do, please click subscribe at the bottom and give us a thumbs up also, because that helps us in the ranking. Take care, keep safe. We appreciate each and every one of you. See you on the road. Now that wasn't so bad, was it? See you online.